Storytime with Herbal Roots zine. I'm Kristine Brown, and today I'm going to read to you a story I wrote for issue number 109, Splendid Speedwell, called Veronica's Gift. Can you hear that? The sound of birds chirping? Spring is here. It's still a bit chilly, but the bird's song of spring ushers in the first blooming wildflower of the season, Speedwell. Now, you might not be familiar with this beautiful little creeping plant, but if you've ever seen brilliant blue flowers blooming, you probably won't forget it. Depending on where you live, you might have a taller version of Speedwell, known as Veronica officinalis, or even Veronica americana, but here in the Midwest, Veronica persica is the dominant species. This plant is great for the skin, helping to heal wounds and soothe itchy skin. And as a tea, it makes a great eye wash for tired and inflamed eyes and for itchy eyes. This herb can also be used as a gargle for sore throats, and it can help to ease congestion related to coughs, asthma, bronchitis, and other respiratory issues. That's just a few things that Speedwell can be used for. Today's story, Veronica's Gift, is all about how Speedwell, known in the botanical world as Veronica, is discovered. Once long ago, there was a village full of hard-working people. They were poor, as most villagers were, having to give up a large portion of their crops and supplies to the king's men. But they did their best to live happy lives with what they had. They did not want for much. They spent their days working hard, tending their crops, weaving fabrics, and doing other trade work that was necessary for their survival. The villagers were pretty hardy, but some villagers had aches and pains that happened from their daily work. Those that worked in the fields all day often had cuts and scratches, and even rashes from their daily tasks. And those who were fabric weavers often had sore eyes from constantly staring at and watching their looms. The villagers did what they could to help their afflictions, but often they did not have enough herbs or the right kind to heal their problems. One day, a group of nomadic people came through the village. They stopped at the edge of the village to feed and water their horses and collect some water for their own needs. The villagers were kind and welcomed them, something that didn't always happen in the villages that the nomads passed through. But the villagers offered a space for their horses to graze and a comfortable spot for them to stay for a few days to rest up before traveling again. One of the weavers noticed that one of the family's children were poorly dressed and in need of new clothing. She had an overabundance of the cloth she was weaving, so she offered it to the children's mother, who introduced herself as Veronica. Veronica had striking blue eyes, as did her children. When the woman offered Veronica the cloth, she wept with gratitude at her generosity. Veronica offered items in return from their personal stash, but the woman refused to take any of her personal belongings. She invited Veronica and her family to her home for dinner and offered to help sew up some clothes for the children. In the short period of time, the women became very close friends. The woman from the village tried not to complain about her sore eyes, but Veronica could tell the woman was suffering. She also observed how the woman's husband had many cuts and scratches on his skin from his long day in the fields. Veronica offered them a salve to put on the wounds and some tea to put in her eyes. The next day, both the woman and her husband had healed up and were very grateful that Veronica could help them. Veronica's blue eyes twinkled with delight in being able to repay the family for their kindness and generosity. A few days later, the nomads left the village. Everyone was sad to see them go, but the nomads promised that they would pass through again someday. The woman and her husband continued to use the tea and salve to help with their sore eyes and wounds. They shared it with their friends too, but soon both were gone. Everybody's sore eyes and skin ailments came back. Sad, the woman walked down to the village well to collect some water and noticed something blue twinkling in the grass where Veronica and her family had been. She stooped down to get a closer look and discovered a plant that had never grown there before, with bright blue flowers that reminded her of Veronica's eyes. She collected some and took it home to make her some tea to share with her family. As she brewed the tea, she noticed it smelled similar to the tea Veronica had given her, so she tasted it. It tasted similar to the tea Veronica had given her as well, so she decided to try it on her eyes, and sure enough, her eyes felt better. Excited, the woman went back to the flower patch to collect some more and took it home and made some salve from it. That night, she applied the salve to her husband's cuts and scratches. Amazed, he watched as his skin felt instant relief and asked where she had gotten the salve from. She told him about her discovery by the well. They decided to harvest more of the plants and to tell the village about the flowers. Everyone was excited to learn that the nomad's remedy had been left behind, and because the bright blue flowers reminded them of Veronica's eyes, they took to calling the plant Veronica. They continued to use the plant and found it helpful for other things as well. Veronica and her family never returned to the village, but the village never forgot her and the gift she left behind for them. I hope you enjoyed today's story. If you'd like to learn more about Speedwell, I'll put the link to the Speedwell ebook in the description below. Thanks for visiting Herbal Roots Zine for Storytime, and I'll see you next time.